All right, so I decided to record a video because some of you were struggling. Yesterday I went over this in class, but I know I had promised somebody I'd talk about this during advisory, and I can't be there today. So here's how you turn the data of the lab report into the results. This is essentially the data analysis section of your lab report. So I've linked, I sent you all a video link, I think an email the other day, that goes to the two videos from dropping, I dropped some rubber wheels. Essentially from that, you're pulling out timestamps with positions in meters of the object in Freefall. Okay, so that's up to you. Your data shouldn't exactly match mine, but it should be close if you're using the same video. But essentially you need times and positions. All right, now once you have time and position, you can do a position time graph, and actually I'm going to start by doing that. I'm going to highlight these two columns here. I'm going to click Insert, Chart. I'm going to make sure my chart is a scatter chart. I'm going to make sure that my x-axis is my timestamps. My series is my position, my x. You might need to mess around with this to get the graph to look like this, but this is what it should look like. Okay, it should look like sort of a downward parabola. Okay, so that is your position time graph. Let me move this to the side, and I'll shrink it way down. So it's right here. All right, cool. Over here. All right, so now I need to create a velocity time graph. So the question is, how do I get velocity out of this data? Well, to get velocity, I need two position points. So if I look at my graph, I've got a point here at the beginning and then a second point. I can use these 2 points to estimate the average velocity between these two time periods. So I'm going to create a new data point kind of in between these two. I'm going to go here to line 3, and I'm going to insert a row below. This is where I'm going to create, I'm going to do the calculation for the velocity. And I'm looking for the velocity between these two periods of time. So what do I need to calculate velocity? The first thing I need is a change in time. So I'm going to call this delta t. Now, to calculate my change in time, it is going to be equal to my second time minus my first time. So in my data set, my first change in time was 0.13 seconds. Let me make sure I label this as seconds. Okay. The next thing I need is a change in position. So we'll call this delta x. And this is in meters. So my change in position is going to be equal to my second position minus my first position. There it is, negative 0.25. Using a change in position and a change in time, I can calculate the velocity, and that's going to be in meters per second. And as we remember from our definition of velocity, it's a change in position, delta x, divided by a change in time, delta t. There we go. Now, I could go right to plotting this. My main issue is I do not have a time that this velocity happened. I have a time at the start of the period, and I have a time at the end of the period. So what I'm actually still missing here is what time is this velocity for? So I'm going to call this t average. Okay. Essentially, I'm going to pretend that this velocity happened right in the middle of this time interval by averaging these two together. I'm going to say this equals, let me use some parentheses here, my first timestamp plus my second timestamp divided by 2. Okay. So now I've got a time when that velocity occurs. And I'm going to repeat that for all these other ones here. Let me do that really quickly. I'm going to insert a row below here, a row below there, below. Because I'm going to do a calculation for each of these. Now, unfortunately, I don't have to repeat it because I can just drag my formulas down if I do this right. Go. Cool. So I can take this delta t and I can just drag this down, and it will do the appropriate calculations. Now, these ones don't make sense where they're 0 because they're actually calculating using these empty boxes. So you can delete all the ones that did that. It should be every other one. And they're also not on the appropriate sort of middle row there. Same thing with delta x. I can do the same thing right here. Now my delta x's end up being all identical. That won't necessarily be true for you, but the way I kind of paused my video is I paused it when it was at set locations. So that ended up happening. And let's go ahead and calculate my delta v's, which are right here. Now all these ones it doesn't like because I'm divided by 0, but once again those are the lines that don't really make sense. They're the in-between lines. Okay, and lastly, my average time. Okay, so now I'm going to do my v versus t graph, my velocity time graph. These are not in the right order, so I'm not going to pre-select them. I'm just going to click Insert Chart. I'm going to select this to be a scatter chart. Let me move this over here. Scatter chart. My x-axis is not my time in seconds. I want it to be, oh, this is so convoluted. My t average, here we go. Oh, there's too much going on here. Let me, there, get a little more space. Move this stuff around. Let's cancel. Come back to this in a second. Let me move it. Come on. Move this guy. It's in the way. There we go. All right, so let's go back to setup. My x-axis is going to be my time in my average time. There we go. And my series, it's not t, let's delete this one. It is going to be my velocities. Okay, so we should get something that kind of looks like this. Time here, the velocity should have been becoming more and more negative as time went on. Okay, I don't know why it's so poorly labeled. That must have just been somewhere here in the title. It got messed up. The title should be velocity versus time, and the x-axis, the horizontal axis, is time in seconds, and my vertical axis is velocity in meters per second. Okay, so now this graph makes sense. The last thing I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and add a trend line. So I go down to series, and I'm going to add a trend line. It's a linear trend line, and I want to see the equation. So under label, I select use equation. Okay. All right. Now, unfortunately, this does not seem to make sense because this slope should be close to negative 9.8. So I'm not quite sure what's going on here. It doesn't really make sense. Let me double check my data. Setup. It's a scatter chart. Oh, I haven't defined an x-axis. I thought I did. Let's go back to this. It should be this last column here, t average. Okay. Cool. Everything looks good. All right, and now I can see that my slope is negative 10.9, which is close enough to negative 9.8. The units on that slope should be the rise over run, so meters per second divided by seconds would be meters per second squared, which the known acceleration due to gravity is negative 9.8 meters per second squared. This is pretty darn close, and I can make that my conclusion within my lab report. So this is my position time graph. You can see it's a curve. This is my velocity time graph. It should be a straight line, but there's a little bit of jitter there with our data collection, but it's pretty linear, and I can find the acceleration by looking at the slope. All right, so best of luck with that.